let's get cracking. Corf would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where we gather, even as we do so electronically and from various areas around Queensland and around Australia. We pay respect to elders past, present and emerging, and we acknowledge the important roles of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples within the outdoor recreation community and on the land, sky and waterways that are used for outdoor activities. Corf also acknowledges the support that's provided to us and to the outdoor sector by the Queensland Government, and we do appreciate that. Getting on to a big welcome to everyone. Thanks for joining us again for another session. My name's Dom Courtney. I'm the Executive Officer of Corf, soon to be Outdoors Queensland, hopefully. We've lodged our documentation. It's just waiting for bureaucracy, which is always a fun thing to wait for, as most of us are probably aware. Mark Squires, Corf's Partnerships Manager, is with us, Outdoors Queensland Partnership Manager. And welcome to Mark. I'm not sure if Hubertine is with us today, but yeah, as we go through, if any others. Also welcome members of Corf and Outdoors Queensland, but also life members of our organisation who might be with us. And anyone else who's joining us, including reps from interstate organisations. I see Laurie's on the call. I'm sure, I think I saw her writing down that joke for use in later use, but also Laurie's from Outdoors New South Wales and ACT, and also Robin from Outdoors Victoria is with us today. And I don't think we've got Jamie from Outdoors WA. It might be a bit early for him over in the west. And sorry to our interstate colleagues for probably confusing you, because you guys all changed your clocks, but we didn't. So 11 o'clock's 11 o'clock our time as far as we're concerned, and we're being stubborn about it. And Alan Abrahams is also with us from Rail Trails Australia. So welcome, Alan, and thanks for joining us. It's lovely to see you. As I said, we're going to make the recordings of it. We do make the recordings of these sessions available on our website and on YouTube. And I'm still keeping our little quote there by the Queensland Chief Health Officer, Dr. Jeanette Young, up on the screen, where she said a couple of weeks ago, outdoors is the safest place to be, and we have got the best climate in Australia and the world in terms of living our lives outdoors. Wherever possible, I strongly recommend people move their lives as much as possible outdoors. Pretty happy with that quote. I tend to second her suggestions there. So yeah, I think it is certainly a way of looking at this pandemic and how we can react to it and what it means for the future as we go along. So I thought we'd just remind everyone about that little quote from the Chief Health Officer, who is probably doing one of the most difficult jobs you could imagine right now, I think, right across, particularly across what has been going on across the state and across the country. A bit of an agenda for today, and as I said, there's a big one there at the end. Any other matters anyone wants to talk about, please say so. The agenda is the topics that we've talked about a few times, but also a few extra ones in there. So the Outdoors Queensland Awards, the state election that's coming up, our regional loose parts tour, which is going on at the moment, and the Australian AAS Venture Activity Standards implementation webinars, as well as the industry COVID safe plans and COVID safe events. That's the dot points. If anyone else has anything else, please, you can pop it in the quotes, in the chat, or yeah, just raise your hand and we can go there. So yeah. The first one there, just talking about the Outdoors Queensland Awards, a big congratulations to the finalists for the awards. The award ceremony will be held virtually, so online in a fortnight, 6 o'clock on Friday the 30th of October. So yeah, you can join us from anywhere. We welcome everyone, and that's 6 o'clock Queensland time, not that silly daylight saving business. Just for the interstate people. Yeah, so please join us. It's all about celebrating the great things that have been happening in the outdoors, even in this strange year, but also from things that have happened previous years. Nominations aren't just about the last 12 months. So we have a guest speaker too, Eleanor Carey. She's an adventurer, speaker and writer. And she actually is the first Australian female to row across the Pacific Ocean. So pretty cool story of how she did that, rowing from California to Hawaii in a team with 2 women from the UK in a team, 3 of them in a boat crossing the Pacific Ocean, which is pretty cool. And she's going to tell us about that story on the evening. So yeah, I'd like to invite you to join us for that session. I think it'll be really good. It'll be about 2 hours, we think, which also depends on how long Mark talks, because he's emceeing it, and he'll keep the show on the road beautifully, as he has done in the person at our previous awards dinners. But Mark's turning his wonderful skills to the online emceeing this year, which might be, I'm sure he'll do a great job of that. So Mark, did you want to say anything else about the awards, mate, or anything about registration for it? Or
only that I put the link up for the information about the awards, which includes the link to register to come along and join us. And I just invite you all to do so. The more the merrier, really. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, mate. Yeah, you can join through Zoom, or we'll also be broadcasting on Facebook Live. So that's another option for you if you're interested in going down that path. So please feel free to join us. The other looming event coming up for Queenslanders is the state election, which is actually going to be held on the day after our awards, so on the Saturday, the 31st of October. We've released a state election outdoor recreation policy, sent that to the parties and asked for their feedback on it. We've actually received some feedback from a couple of parties, and we'll put that up on our website shortly. We're still waiting on some others to get back to us on it, but I think they're a little bit busy at the minute. But it'd be nice to have commitments, I guess, to some of the things that we've asked for on behalf of the outdoor sector in relation to government policy for the next 4 years or so. So that's available on our website too, if you want to have a look at it, and the link's there on that page. Yeah, so please feel free to have a look at that one. And if you are talking to any of your politicians, if they happen to nab you when they're doing their door knocking, feel free to mention our statement, assuming you've had a read of it. You probably all got copies printed out and ready at home to show them. But yeah, please feel free to mention it. It's certainly, the more that people know about it and the policies, the things we're asking for, none of it's ground changing, but it certainly would make a difference to our sector if those sort of things were followed through. So a lot of it just lines up with what Corf's been advocating for a long, long time, as far as access to outdoor spaces, developing the capacity of the outdoor sector and promoting outdoor activities as the terrific things to do for the wonderful benefits that we know there are there. But it's also about getting that recognition and getting it embedded in government policy. So yeah, I just wanted to flag that with you. The other one we did, just as we put together this infographic just to inform and probably try to catch the poly's eyes, or the policy development eyes, as far as the economic value of the outdoors in Queensland, and also the contribution that it makes as far as the hours of participation. So that 231 million hours of outdoor recreation participation per year. It's some pretty big numbers when you add all this stuff up. So just trying to get their attention as far as making sure we're not forgotten in this situation as we go to a government election. Any questions on any of that, or keep on charging? Oh, cool. I did realise I don't always stop and ask that question, so I probably should do it a little bit more. The Nature Play Queensland project program, we're running our Loose Parts Play regional tour. So week 1 of that was last week. Next week it'll be another week of the tour. So they're heading up to Rockhampton on Sunday and doing some local communities going in there and working with particularly primary schools, early childhood education centres, and community groups to talk about loose parts and how kids can get outdoors and play more often and build those experiences. So it's been done really well as far as the first week of the tour was really well received, and that's happening too. So just want to let you know about that one. I've got the wrong links on that page as well, which is terrific. But so off to Rocky, Emerald, Biloela and Bundaberg next week. Then there'll be another third leg of the tour in the first week of November. So that's going to be Hervey Bay, Gympie, Maroochydore and Caloundra. So they'll be coming soon to a place near you perhaps. So, and we might be doing more of those in the future depending on funding and interest from partners. I just wanted to mention the Australian Adventure Activity Standard and Good Practice Guides implementation webinars. So Outdoors WA have organised these webinars. We ran and I co-hosted it with Jamie from Outdoors WA. We ran the first webinar this week on Wednesday evening, and that recording's available on the Outdoors WA website. It's really just an introduction to what are the adventure activity standards and good practice guides. The second webinar in that series will be the 29th of October. So that one's getting into more detail about the adventure activity standards and good practice guides. So if you want to join that, anyone can join. Jamie's working on a more the merrier policy on that one. And yeah, feel free to join it if you'd like to. It's not a great time for us, 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, but it's based on WA time because Jamie organised it, which is fair enough because they cop our time a lot of the time. So it's just, yeah, it's 6 o'clock on the 29th of October, but the recordings will be available too. So, yeah. Getting on to the world of COVID. This is the Queensland roadmap. And I just wanted to flag, this was updated a couple of weeks ago to incorporate stage 4, 5 and 6. And that's a new sort of development, I guess, in this month. But I've also noticed they've changed the title of this document to Queensland's COVID Safe Future, where it was Queensland's roadmap to easing restrictions in a COVID environment or some ridiculousness like that. Just wanted to flag, I think there's been some comments this week, the Chief Health Officer has been saying that it looks like, you know, even with a vaccine, COVID is going to be here for some time, and we need to get to that new reality of this. And the fact they're calling it, I think even renaming this document to Queensland's COVID Safe Future, I think is probably an indication of that as well, that the powers that be, I think, are really trying to get the message across that this isn't just a temporary situation that we'll all get through and then go back to how we used to operate. I think the messaging from me seems to be a bit more than that at the moment. I think the Chief Health Officer was talking at a Australian Medical Association of Queensland breakfast the other day, and she was mentioning, there were some comments reported around what she said at that, which is quite interesting. It's worth having a look at. If you can see, it was on the ABC News report. They've certainly covered it. And yeah, so I think it's probably something just to be aware of. The key part, I guess, of the roadmap is these changes as far as easing of restrictions still in there. And it specifically says, let's move Queensland outside, which again, I like that, that sort of terminology. So, and I think for our world, it's a good little reminder that what we're doing is you know, achieving what the government actually wants as far as reducing the spread of COVID while people can still get outdoors and active. Over to the world of industry COVID safe plans. I was just wondering, before we do that, I wonder, Laurie, did you want to mention what's been going on in New South Wales and where you guys are at? Maybe if we have a quick roundup, and then maybe I'll ask Robin to do the same for Victoria. Do you want to?
Yeah.
Yeah? That'd be great.
Yeah, happy. Yeah. So where we're at today, we've got new rules instigating on the 16th, which is today. That's the 2 square metre rule outdoors. So we can have up to 300 in a business or 500 in events using a 2 square metre rule. 4 square metres still applies indoors. But as far as the COVID templates for COVID safe plans, they are referring everyone to the current plans that are on the Service New South Wales website. We cross over 3 of them, so it's still very confusing for outdoors in general. So we've been pushing health to have our own, but they are very reluctant to approve any more because they see that we're on the getting out of providing more restriction, but alleviating restrictions. So they don't really want to approve anymore. They're just recommending us to look at those 3. So needless to say, I'm filtering a lot of calls, and yeah, like yourself did a few months ago now, I'm looking at a lot of COVID plans. There's still a lot of confusion out there, and I suppose if anything I've learned from this is trying to educate our sector in looking at legislation first and using that as the lowest common denominator for anything you do, and then looking at guidelines beyond that, because you know it's the legislation you've got to do for your own risk management as a business, but then your guidelines are protecting you in your risk management for any effect of transmission. And the message I've sent to all of my guys is go above and beyond whatever you can, because we don't want to have a case in any of our facilities, because it's not just the business that's going to be harmed, it'll be the state, it'll be potentially broader than that, so, and probably national in a sector. So that's pretty much the update regarding that. We're full steam ahead as far as term 4 is concerned, and we're sort of playing a bit of catch up where you guys went with term 3. We are recruiting madly, and if I get another ad for a job, it'll be probably about 6 more today. So we're trying to really support the sector and getting bums in roles right now and getting people back out there. So that's a quick update. Anyway, if anyone's got any questions, feel free to fire it across, and I'm happy to address it.
Thanks, Laurie. Does anyone have any questions for Laurie about Outdoors New South Wales ACT, what's been going on to our immediate south? No? Okay, I might just, thanks, Laurie.
No
Robin,
worries.
are you there? Do you want to have a little chat about what's been going on in Victoria?
Does that mean not a lot, Dom? I'm not too sure.
I'm not sure. You there, Robin? You might be on mute, I think. Maybe we've lost Robin. All right, we might come back to Robin later on if we can. So, all right, her microphone's not working, so she's going to pass at the moment. No worries. I just had a quick look at the chat, which has allowed me to pass on that message from Robin. But yeah, thanks anyway, Robin. Sorry about that. Just in the chat, just saw Andrews mentioned, hopefully we don't have to live with the 100 rule for the foreseeable future. We'll come to that one, mate. And Danny said the registration link isn't working for the Loose Parts regional play. Okay, I'm not sure what's going on, but we'll chase that one up, Danny. Sorry about that. Yeah, so moving on to Queensland's industry COVID safe plans. I think I show this slide just about every single time we talk about this, but it's just a reminder, I suppose, again, probably a little bit of what I said just before about the plans have never been written so that organisations can go back to how they operated before COVID. And one thing that government's emphasised a lot on our website, on their website lately, is that the COVID safe plans, industry COVID safe plans, are actually only for organisations. They're not intended to be used by individuals. So you'd be amazed how many emails I've had from people saying that they want to go mountain biking with a larger group than the limit that's in the roadmap. Can they just use the industry plan? And the answer is, according to the government, is no. Unless you're an organisation, you can't opt into using the industry plan. So they're it's not to be used just as a way of getting around those restrictions on public gatherings. So they've emphasised that a bit more lately, I think, and yeah, just wanted to flag that. But it is any organisation within our industry can use the plans. You don't have to be a member of CORF or Outdoors Queensland, but you do have to sign this statement of compliance and display that. So that's an important part of it as well. The new plans were approved on the 2nd of October and published the following week on the government website. So both of our plans, the outdoor rec activity providers and the outdoor education providers plans, were updated earlier this month. It doesn't include the relaxation on the 100-person client group size limit. It just is updates to reflect the changes that came in with that new roadmap that we just had on the screen that came in at the start of October. So we've also got the change that Laurie talked about with the 1 person per 2 square metres outdoors for most businesses. But it's actually a bit strange. In the outdoor industry plans, we don't have the requirement of restricting capacity based on density when you're outdoors. So the requirement for us into the industry plan is to maintain physical distancing of 1.5 metres when you're not engaged in the activity, and you can have full contact when you are on the field of play doing the activity. But in the industry plan, it doesn't actually refer to the 1 per 2 square metres as a way of calculating density when you're outdoors, because it's considered that the requirements of just having the physical distancing overrides that. So I find it a little bit confusing personally. I thought it would have had the 1 per 2 square metres in there for outdoor spaces, and I've asked the question of that one, but that's the answer I've got, is it's not in there because we're at that next level of just having to worry about the physical distancing and not worry about the capacity based on the 1 per 2 square metres, but it's still in there for the 1 per 4 square metres for indoor spaces in both the plans. So you'll see that in all of the industry plans, how they've tried to make them consistent for sport, recreation and fitness. So just wanted to flag that. Happy to have a chat about it, but yeah, that's one of the confusing parts of it, I think. So the outdoor rec activity provider plan, they've actually inserted wording. Originally, our plans only went stage 2 and stage 3 for the outdoor rec activity providers. They've now inserted wording to say beyond stage 3. So we're now in stage 4. So the plan is still in operation because they have the protocols that'll work beyond stage 3 or stage 3 and beyond. So that's an important part of it. The changes are really about the event information. Outdoor events can go up to 1,000 people now without having to get separate permissions, as long as it is an event that lines up with the industry plan. There's still all the information about physical distancing, hygiene, contact tracing, and stuff, worker training, that sort of stuff. Nothing's really changed in that space. And in fact, some of it's actually become more emphasised, I think, in the plan because they want to make sure that's all happening. So that's a big part of these plans going forward. The next one is also the outdoor ed plan. Sorry, I should have asked if anyone has any questions about the outdoor activity providers plan. Nope. So the outdoor ed providers plan, the big one, I guess, there is probably that the Chief Health Officer's requirement that all patrons have to be seated when eating or drinking has been relaxed. So that's actually changed as far as that. I think most operations probably have seated dining anyway, so it's not a huge deal for us, but it certainly is for some other industries. So that's across the board, and that's changed in the plan as well. And it's similar stuff as what was in the other outdoor rec activity providers. With the stage 3 and onwards, and then the other reminders. So that's all been included in there. We are still waiting on a decision from Queensland Health in relation to our submission and seeking the relaxation on the 100-person limit for the group sizes under the Outdoor Education Providers Plan. So I've even just said, like, they said hopefully we'll get a result we'll know this week, and I haven't heard anything yet. So I'm still waiting. As soon as we know, we'll let everyone know. It's there's no value to us in keeping that to ourselves, but I'm hoping it's a positive answer that we can move on and have that relaxation to that restriction. But I don't know how that's going to go. So it's just waiting at the moment, and I understand the frustration of a lot of operators, particularly in trying to plan ahead. I think that's where I think that is really hurting, as far as even when people are looking at booking in for a group for next year. I think this is, and we made that point when we did the submission, that it was that this is affecting future planning into next year and beyond. So, you know, that's, I guess, all I can do is say to you, as soon as we know, we'll let you know on that one. But I also wanted to, just that second point there, I wanted to open it up to anyone as far as any issues presented by the protocols in either of the current plans, other than the 100 group size limit, to have a discussion about that. If anyone's still encountering issues that are making things difficult, and this is about, I guess, us being ready to make a further submission for further relaxations. And if the 100 group size limit, you know, if we got a confirmation of that decision that that was relaxed today, I guess my question is, what's the next problem going to be? What do you think will crop up as the next drama? And even if that were refused, which touch wood, it won't be, then what do we actually need to go back with as far as going further to make sure things are, that everyone's able to operate in a COVID safe manner, but also that we are actually able to operate as an industry. So does anyone have any ideas of particular issues right now that want to lead off with any questions or raise any issues that you're encountering? No one. I'm finding this hard to believe that no one's encountering any issues other than the 100 group size limit.
I'll jump in, Dom. So it's Adrian from Queensland Venues. How you going?
Hello, mate.
Mate, I suppose a key one for us is the restriction regarding staff working across different client groups. So I'm not sure whether other venues are experiencing the same issue. However, you know, we will have potentially up to 3 or 4 different client groups on site, and just trying to staff that situation is difficult when we have staff calling in sick and we have to modify rosters. Not having the capacity to allow staff to work across 2 different client groups is very, very restrictive. Probably more restrictive than the 100-person limit, really.
So, mate,
Matt?
Yeah, so you're talking about multiple groups from different schools or something. You're not talking about one big group of 150, which is split into 75. You're talking multiple schools when they're on site?
Regardless, mate. So it's, if a client group's restricted to 100, whether it be, the one school of, 150 split into two groups of 75, it's, still staff aren't allowed to work across those 2 different client groups. If we have a staff member, if we've got 3 client groups on site, if we have a staff member fall ill and we need to, fill that shift, then, it's very restricted because, if somebody's already worked with a client group that's already on site, they can't sort of jump over and fill in that role.
Yeah, so you need, and you also need all those specialist skills for every activity you do, as far as one person, you need a specialist for each group as far as every activity. Okay.
Yeah, well, look at. We endeavour to have a staff member follow an activity group all the way through a program. Obviously, that's our preferred option. However, that won't always be the case. As I say, if someone falls ill, then we need someone to jump in with the appropriate skill sets and such. And I would imagine that there may be operators out there that are actually assign staff to a specific activity. So if in that situation, if they have multiple client groups on site, then the different client groups will be coming into contact with that staff member that's actually running that activity.
Yep. Okay. Does anyone else have anything to add on that one? Is that being encountered by other people as well? I think it sort of ties into the 100 group size level, but it goes beyond it as well. I think from what Adrian's just said, like it's obviously affecting the rec centres in that way. Does anyone else have any comments on that one?
Yeah, it's true of us too, particularly at Mapleton. I think the key thing there really is to keep the contact tracing. So because there is that, in inverted commas, wherever possible thing there, but the key, I think, for us is contact tracing. So if there is a switch with a staff person, we just got to really keep our records on that. But probably the biggest impact for us is it's very difficult to run the activities that require 2 instructors. So climbing wall, flying fox, those sorts of activities where we double up the instructor as the groups rotate. That becomes difficult. So so far we've taken the stance of just running the 1 instructor activities, but it is, it's cutting out activities that groups really want to do, particularly climbing wall. So.
Yeah, okay. So that's directly affecting, what activities you can provide, and particularly, I guess, how well the clients are being serviced in those activities. You're having to modify what you're delivering to them because of the industry plan protocols.
Yeah. So going forward, if we can have some kind of ability, when someone gets sick or something, to be able to swap people in or out, and just make sure that that's really well documented for contact tracing purposes.
Okay. So that's sort of your middle ground on that one, Andrew, as far as trying to manage the risk, I suppose, as far as trying to reach an appropriate middle ground. Yeah, okay. Thanks, Mike. Any other comments on that one? It sounds like it's an issue possibly mostly for the larger centres. I'm guessing because the smaller centres may not have multiple groups in the normal time, but I don't know, is this is an issue? It's still probably worth putting it in there to seek a relaxation on it next time we're trying to get some further easing of restrictions, I suppose. No one else with a comment on that one? Okay, I'll take that on board and maybe work a little bit more with both Adrian and Andrew about what that might look like as far as what we could ask for as another one. Is there any other issues that the industry plans are presenting at the minute that we need to start addressing or start looking at addressing?
Just back to that one, Dom, like Adrian and ourselves, we try and keep our instructors with their groups, but there are quite a few operators where they just have people trained up to do 1 or 2 activities and rotate the groups through those. They're not necessarily in this conversation, so it'd be interesting to know what they're doing. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I guess that is where it sort of depends on your model, I guess, to a point where if you have staff who stick with the groups as opposed to staff who stick with an activity. And at the moment, if you had 2 groups, you've got to have separate staff with each activity so that you don't have that crossover. So I guess, the contact tracing is a key part of it, and how do we manage it in the safest possible way without that Queensland Health's actually going to be happy with too, but make sure you guys and your staff are happy with it too. That's the other bit, and your clients. So yeah, I think that's where we're looking at finding that balance. So thanks for that.
We did have another scenario that came up where we have internal assessors for our quality assurance processes, and you know, so they could potentially be you know, assessing staff you know, across different client groups as well. So you know, I don't know, does that technically, you know, breach that industry plan then, or?
Oh, mate. I guess that one's an interesting one. I guess it sort of depends how long they're spending there. But if they were there for a whole session, you'd sort of think they're probably, it is aware of a possible, which I think Andrew mentioned. But you'd sort of think they probably shouldn't be having contact with multiple groups as well if they're there doing that. But you want to see they have to do their assessment to the fullest they can, I suppose, and see how the staff run the activities with different groups is actually part of that, right? And it's not exactly practical to say, well, okay, you can see them with this group on Monday and come back on Thursday to see them do it with a different group, you know?
Yeah, and we're already having staffing issues, so that would slow that, potentially slow that process of bringing new staff on as well. So it ends up potentially being a risk management issue over, you know, a COVID issue. And you know, we can obviously implement some physical distancing protocols to make sure that they're not coming in close contact with client groups. It's still, it's sort of, yeah, it just, I suppose it shows a couple of the holes in the, you know, in the industry plan, or issues with the industry plans.
Yep. The other one that it does, and this is going back to the roadmap, it actually specifically mentions on the roadmap, the latest version of it, using masks where physical distancing is not practical or something like that. It's got a little infographic at the bottom of it, and maybe that's the other one that we say, well, maybe that's a way of having crossover, if that's practical, to have those sort of people like an assessor, you know, wearing a mask, so they're not actually, they're further limiting their risks. I'm not sure. It might be up to each organisation to have a look at what's reasonable in the circumstances as far as trying to manage that. But I think we need to get to what's reasonable in the circumstances for each operator. But I'm not sure. Yeah, that's one it's probably a little bit different, that really the plans are written to cover off our general everyday activities and probably don't quite get to that level, which might be a good thing, I think, that it provides some flexibility in there for each operation. But yeah, it's certainly one to think about. Any other comments on aspects of the plan that are causing grief or causing confusion? There's all, you know, I guess it's one of those things that I think it's about the process of trying to continually improve the plans. And I'm talking about the outdoor rec activity plan as well. If that's causing anyone any problems, I'd like to hear about it. We do focus a lot on the outdoor education plan, and it's possibly just because that's where the grief is coming in some areas of that, like the 100 group size limit. But if there's anything in the other plan too, happy to look at doing a submission for further for changes to that one too.
It's just that one thing we've discussed, Dom, where, you know, in the outdoor ed industry plan, there's the comment about the relaxation for school-age students, and then goes on to list dining, accommodation and ablutions. It'd be great to have meeting rooms inserted there, just to make that change. Because I would suggest the meeting rooms are less of a problem than the dining rooms, especially, even the accommodation is the least of our problems.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, that one's probably, I think that was more a bit of that list of indoor spaces was probably just drawn about thinking about, as it says, the dining rooms, the accommodation, or the sleeping areas and the bathrooms. So yeah, so meeting rooms into that list might be, I don't think that's a big change. So yeah, we can have a look at that as well and speak about how that would work. But yeah, I guess that's the thing where you have, it's recognising that not all activities in outdoor education actually go on outdoors. Some of it does happen indoors. So we need to consider how that works with those groups. Okay. I just wanted to touch on COVID safe events as well. So this is just, I took this from the government website today. So the big point there is about 1,000 attendees per event at outdoor events. And it actually says that 1,000 attendees per day, which is a good thing to have that clarity. We did have a while back a couple of people who were running events, and when the cap was 500 and they're hitting up against over 2 days, they were going to have over 500 people. And it was understood that it was 500 a day, but they've made that much more clear now, which is great. And they're updating that industry framework for COVID safe events and their fact sheets. So that's happening. But yeah, the information's on the government website. I think they're updating their frequently asked questions if they haven't done that already too. So it's worth having a look at that. I've actually regularly get questions about events, whether it's quite clear if you're running a mountain bike event, you can do that under the Outdoor Recreation Activity Providers Industry Plan. That's covered. You do have to consider the principles in the COVID safe events plan, framework, but there's other events that are quite interesting that are, you know, literally I got an email the other day asking about, could we run an outdoor event where people get together and play board games in a park? Does that fit under your industry plan for outdoor activities? And my answer is pretty much no, I'm afraid it doesn't. That's not what it's written for. It's written for traditional outdoor activities, and there's a list there of, you know, I don't know, about 30 or 40 different activities. And we'd say, you know, that's a bit of a strange one, but I just referred them to the COVID safe events framework and the checklist that's on the website. So there has been a lot of questions about that because ours is the plan that has the word outdoor in it, so people are flocking to it, I think. But yeah, there's a lot going on there. This saw Andrew Grant's just put the Blackall 100 this weekend has 850 runners with an endorsed event plan, which is great to see. You know, and I mean, it's interesting. There's 850 runners keen to do a 100-kilometre run. I'm not sure if that's across different distances, but that's a bit scary. But I hope their event goes well. It's good to see events like that are able to take place at the moment, particularly going back to the whole, you know, reason, I suppose, of getting more people outdoors and active is great to see. So, oh, okay, Andrew's just clarified, 250 runners only doing the 100 Ks. It's, yeah, just a lazy 250, awesome. But yeah, 50 Ks and also 21K distance. So I don't think they'd be accepting any late entries or anyone who wants to do some training this afternoon and turn up for the weekend. But yeah, it's certainly great to see events like that going on, and it's sold out. There you go. Thanks, mate. Sounds like you've got the goss on that one, mate. Are you guys involved in the Blackall 100 at all? Like, are they using your venue?
Yeah, we're starting finish line. So yeah, we've had to, like, normally they have the briefing and stuff in the hall. This year it's a completely outdoors event. Yeah, thank goodness for the weather the way it is, because if it was, you know, one of those Maverton October downpours, it would be interesting. But yeah, no, it's a completely outdoors event.
Terrific. I hope it goes well.
I think the field of play is several thousand square kilometres for social distancing purposes.
Righto, so it should be okay to accommodate the 850 people, you reckon?
Yeah, it should be all right.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's good to hear. Yeah, mate, I hope it all goes well. Yeah, it's great. As I say, it's great to see events like that able to happen at the moment. You know, particularly the more that we can see those sort of events going on and being held well and responsibly, I think the better off we're all going to be. So, you know, well done on being able to host it and do it justice. So thanks for doing that, mate. That's another good contribution from QCCC. Well done. That's just about it as far as the agenda. I did want to just, you know, coming back to what we've covered, if there's any other questions, more than happy to do it, or just open the floor. I did want to say too, I don't know, Alan, if you wanted to say anything about the work of Rail Trails Australia and what you guys have been doing, I'm happy to open the floor up to you or anyone else who wants to have a chat. Alan, did you want to speak about Rail Trails Australia?
Thanks, Dom. Yeah, look, thanks very much for allowing me to just participate in this. I was just interested to find out what's happening up in Queensland and what you guys are up to. I mean, Rail Trails Australia obviously has been affected by COVID because certainly in Victoria we can't get out, and in other places as well to a greater and less extent. But I think the message is coming through that outdoors is good, and people should get outdoors. So that's really provided a boon for us in terms of we're seeing governments in New South Wales now releasing Crown land to allow extensions to happen. There's development applications going in for extensions of rail trails. And bear in mind that what we're doing is encouraging people to take disused railway lines and turn them into multiple use, walking, cycling, horse riding, whatever. So we kind of focused on that plan. So I think in this sort of brave new world we're going into, I think it's going to be good for rail trails generally to open them up, to join them up, and while Victoria was leading in terms of we've got over 1,000 kilometres worth of rail trails around the state. The other states are coming on board very quickly, and there's a lot of activity happening up in Queensland, which is really encouraging. And we've got 3 or 4 regional reps in that area now who are on the ground and talking to stakeholders or whoever the stakeholders might be about promoting and enhancing and encouraging people to use rail trails, which is good.
That's great. Thanks, Alan. Yeah, and I think the rail trails seem to be developing and popping up all over the place. So particularly, I think a lot of councils seem to be on board with the message as far as more accessible places for people to walk, run, ride, and get outdoors and active. So I think that's a great thing. And it's certainly something that Caulfield Outdoors Queensland will continue to push as well, and look forward to working with you on some of those projects. Yeah.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Does anyone else want to have a chat about what your organisations are up to, or what's been going on? Any changes in operations or good things that's going on? I did see Aaron's joined us from Victoria as well. Welcome, mate.
I'm just uncomfortable taking credit for the Blackall 100. It's a Run Queensland event, so they've done a lot of the hard work. They just use our site. So I didn't mean you guys were organising. I just mean it's great to see that cooperation across the outdoors, across different people in the outdoors to make those events happen. But it's great to see, and it's awesome to see so many people keen to do 100 kilometres on a lovely weekend. I was just going to mention Danny's comment there about considerations for some activities where internal spaces are classed as field of play, not requiring social distancing. And then if we include auditoriums in zones for school age groups, does that limit other groups on site from using the room? I think it's probably, I guess it's a matter of it being included in like the dining room. You can have multiple groups use it, but you would actually need to do some sort of cleaning, I guess, as well. So yeah, it's certainly something to have a look at, I think, how it would work. Did you want to expand on that, Danny, or?
Dom, you pretty well hit the nail on the head. I just didn't want to miss considering that if we put it into a zone and we don't clarify that we have the option of using things that are a component of that zone for that group, as long as we clean them in between use by somebody else, we would limit that. So I just didn't want to, I didn't want to gain something, not to have a clarification that enabled us to use it for groups.
Yeah, no worries, mate. I think that's how we'd have to look at it. And the zone system, I know it's still working for operators, but it's actually not in the plan anymore. Like, it doesn't say you have to do that. You just have to put in procedures that work for your operation. So it probably is a matter of, you can have multiple groups sharing facilities as long as they've got the right controls to manage or to prevent the spread of COVID. So it can definitely be work for any of those spaces where if you've got a cleaning regime in place between groups, then that can be the way it works. It's just as long as whatever process you have in place, you follow. So that's the big message, I think, still out of from Queensland Health, particularly from anyone who's had the visits, I think, is what I've been hearing back.
Well, that makes sense, Dom. I guess the only gain we were looking for when Andrew mentioned it was that the social distancing didn't apply for school-aged children when they're in their meeting spaces or auditoriums. That's the only thing we wanted clarified. So that's all it needs to say then. No matter where the school-aged children are on your site, they don't need to socially distance.
Yeah, and that's I think that's the exact question we'd have to put in there, of trying to make sure that that is acceptable to Queensland Health as well. And we can certainly do that on the next time we're looking to do that. So yeah, thank you for that. I think it's a good point, and certainly a question we can at least raise and get an answer to.
Just on a slightly different wavelength, I was on in a meeting recently in the last week where the executive director, straight underneath the chief health officer, made a comment that they didn't have the resources to adequately respond to changes in industry plans unless industry plans were more reflective of changes in legislation and in roadmaps. Makes me think that one of the reasons we're possibly not getting a review on the 100 limit is simply because they haven't had time to get to it, not because they don't think it's a good idea. They also made comments that other states have more resources than Queensland aimed at reviewing these things and doing administrative matters. Is that an appeal to someone above the health officer to say, why isn't capacity such that they can respond in a timely manner?
Yeah, I think you've, again, probably hit the nail on the head there, mate. It's I think that's exactly what I've been told too from Sport and Rec. They've followed it up. Actually, literally, I've just checked my emails a little while ago, and that I've got an email there saying they've followed up, but it's not that they're not in favour of it. They just haven't got to it yet, and they've been dealing with, I guess, other pretty urgent things like that potential outbreak up in Townsville and stuff like that. It's the same staff that are dealing with those sort of things that are dealing with the industry plans. And maybe that is something to say, well, we're using these industry plans as a whole as a bedrock for the Queensland economy to keep on operating, then there needs to be some resources given to it. I'd be happy. They could second me for a day. I'll go in and assess that request for a relaxation. I don't know if they want to do that, but I think it is a fair point that they need to properly resource the management of the industry plans. And I guess they're stretched in so many different directions at the moment that something's always going to give. But I think it's also having them understand that the importance that has for the industry, which is what I've certainly tried to do. So I'll keep following it up, but yeah, I think it might be something that we need to have understood, I suppose.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure where to raise it. And obviously when the ED also made the comment that, well, they could do these other things, but then they wouldn't deliver health services for Queensland, was a interesting remark.
Yeah. I just saw Andrew's comment on the chat saying, well, they're dealing with getting as many people as possible in the Gabba. Yeah, I can't comment on that one, but yeah, that does seem to be a high priority to get as many people at a game of footy as possible. What is that, next Saturday, tomorrow week? Yeah, it's a different world, isn't it, that we're living in. So, and then a Go the Lions comment, well, they've got to get there first. If they don't get to the grand final, I think we just don't worry about it. It doesn't exist. So, yeah, I think there is some interesting stuff going on in that space. So, I have no doubt, like everyone at Queensland Health is doing the best they can, but it's just a matter of priorities in there too. And I think some of what they're doing is going to always get pushed up the chain a bit higher than other things, and it's a matter of finding that balance, I suppose, and when do you get to the stuff that actually is going to have a difference for us. So yeah, I certainly won't leave it, but I've been doing my little little imitation of the bell sitting here ringing every now and again to make sure they haven't forgotten about us. So yeah, that's part of the role, I suppose. Any other matters or questions? No, I forgot to give a plug to Inside the Outhouse on Monday afternoons. They're having this at the moment. I'm not sure if anyone from the Outhouse is with us today, but they're running what they're calling Geartober, which is they had One Planet on Monday just gone, had a good discussion about all of their products, particularly their backpacks and how they make them. They've got, my mind's just gone blank, I think it's Wilderness Escapes on this week. So they're just talking about gear and that sort of thing. So if you wanted to jump into that one, it's Monday afternoon at 4:17 p.m. Queensland time. They haven't changed the time for you Southerners again. So I think last week they had a few people try to join an hour early, but yeah. So if you wanted to join that, it's always a good session. And Laurie, do you have your happy hour sessions happening? So that would be 3 o'clock Queensland time.
No, 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock Queensland time.
See, look what you've done to us. All right, 5 o'clock Queensland time. If you want to join the Outdoors New South Wales happy hour.
Which is probably more of a better happy hour than 4 o'clock, but anyway.
That's true. Though sometimes at 4 o'clock I'm ready for happy hour anyway, Laurie.
Well, that's why these days.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for doing that. And that one's a bit more of a chilled session as far as people just having a chat about what's been going on. So it's another initiative that Laurie's been championing.
And just another plug, if I may, for anyone that wants to take advantage. Even though you're not in New South Wales, I'm still opening up the doors to, we've got a small business month in October. So we've got 2 sessions left that are designed for outdoor businesses. And anyone's welcome from Queensland to jump on. So if you want to register, jump onto our website. I'm sure Mark is going to be quicker than me putting it into the link. But if you want to jump onto our website, in the events section, there's 2 sessions left. One's on the 22nd, which will be 10 o'clock your time. And the other one is on the 30th of October, also 10 o'clock your time. The first one is about tools to help businesses that you don't know exist. And I can tell you there's a lot of them, and it'll help make informed choices for small businesses in the outdoors. The second one is the ex-vice president of Magic Kingdom in Florida, who is joining us to talk about leadership. And what Disney doesn't know about leadership, I don't think anyone knows. So if you want to join us for those sessions, they're free, courtesy of the New South Wales government. So take advantage and jump on and register.
Terrific. Thanks, Laurie. I think Walt Disney's still in cryogenic storage somewhere, isn't he? He's still leading them even now, I'm pretty sure.
I'm sure. I tell you, amazing individual.
Awesome. Well, I'm not sure if Mark's had a chance to get that links, but we'll include that in the link to that. I think there is already a link on our website, but we'll include. Oh, there you go. Boom, it's done that. So that'll go out to everyone too with the notes from today. So, all right. Thanks very much, everyone. I hope you have a terrific weekend. If anyone here is doing the Blackall 100, good luck with it. I hope you don't get too many blisters. But yeah, I hope you have a great weekend, and yeah, look forward to seeing you in a fortnight, but speaking to you before then as well. So thanks very much, everyone. We'll wrap it up now.
Yeah, see you, folks. Thanks very much.